Hi everybody. Today I thought I'd make a video talking about a subject that I find super fascinating, the inner world. So my thinking on this is that as I begin to try to explain and explore some of the key ideas of depth psychology, I think that this is one of the most fundamental building blocks that we can talk about. I'm referencing a lot from Murray Stein's Map of the Soul, which is a basic introduction to Jungian psychology, and I highly recommend it. And his way of talking about it is to describe the populated interior, which is Jung's idea of the collective unconscious. Um, but I'm going to step back a little further than that and talk about Freud and Jung's ideas of what the unconscious is, the inner world, and the psychic reality of that. So, to begin with, I really think it's important to understand that the inner world is the core foundational principle of psychology. All of psychology is the applying of terms to abstract human experiences. Freud and Jung wrote about these things prolifically. So, the idea is that psychology, if you translate the word, is the study of psyche or soul. But that's a pretty abstract concept in itself. Like, what is psyche? What is soul? And we'll get to that. But I think what's more important is that it's the study of what's intangible about humans. It's the study of what's metaphysical about you and me. So, for example, the ego is a term that's meant to describe the part of you that identifies as I. It's not meant to be like, oh, that person has a huge ego or whatever. That's not what the ego means in psychology. The ego is associated with just your conceptualization of self. It's the interface that's running the show. Whereas the unconscious, the inner world, are meant to sort of be the articulations of the things that go beyond that go beyond your consciousness, the intangible, the psychic reality. It's important to realize that with Jung and Freud, when they talk about psyche, they're talking about a real space that's not located necessarily like in your brain, between your ears. It's not located anywhere specifically, but it is real. And they made a whole lifelong practice of empirically studying it through science. That was one of their big contributions to the modern world, is empirically studying the metaphysical reality of individuals, you and me. It's important to note that Freud and Jung didn't invent these ideas. They just applied their understanding of it through their language system. The idea that there's an inner world or a psychic reality is an ancient idea, and every major spiritual tradition understands this to some extent, and every indigenous tradition works with this directly as well. But as far as modern Western civilization is concerned, Freud and Jung really were the pioneers of trying to work with this stuff through the dominant medical model at the time. So, what actually is the unconscious? It's generally understood to be a vast or even unknowable part of us. Freud uses the analogy of an iceberg, and that what's above water is your consciousness, and what's below water is your psyche and unconscious. Jung took this further by suggesting that the deeper layers are transpersonal and contain building blocks that are shared by all of humanity. He came up with the term archetypes of the unconscious, which are the themes and patterns that are in all people throughout all human history. Joseph Campbell described the difference between Freud and Jung's unconscious as the difference between a biographical and biological way of knowing. And Joseph Campbell really did a lot to synthesize these two ideas. So here's a little video of him explaining the difference between Freud and Jung's unconscious.
The basic difference, as I see it, is indicated in Jung's collective unconscious, his idea of the collective unconscious, das Kollektive. The collective unconscious is a constellation of those energies which proceed from the body. It is a biologically grounded unconscious. The energies that move the organs of our body. Now, every organ in the body has an impulse to action. in its own terms. And so there are conflicts and contrasts and harmonizations and disengagements between these energies as they move us to this kind of action, that, or the other. And of course, included in the organs of the body is the brain, then the cerebrospinal system, the sympathetic system, and all of that. And so the energy that comes into the body becomes differentiated within the body. And these differentiations are manifest in dream, in the way of impulse images that indicate what our impulses are and what our frustrations are in terms of the energies of the body. Now, when you contrast with that, the essential Freudian unconscious, which is a residuum, you might say, of traumatic experiences. The individual's actual traumatic experiences are what are being searched for in a Freudian analysis. The free associations of ideas are supposed to carry one back to that crisis in infancy or later on that actually has constellated the neurosis or whatever it is. So essentially, the Freudian unconscious is a biographical unconscious.
It's incredibly valuable to consider the things that I've experienced in my past, my memories, my personal history. Working with this stuff is so valuable. And Freud's contribution about the personal unconscious is crucial to growing and developing. But the deeper collective mythological unconscious, the symbolic unconscious, the transpersonal metaphysical unconscious that Jung really fleshed out is so profound. It's so valuable to understand how you fit into that, how it fits into you, where your life is part of the great mystery of the universe. Uncovering that is really magical, and working with that is, I think, one of the most profound human experiences there is. So I hope I've made a case for why the inner world is valuable and worth exploring, and really is the most basic principle of psychology, especially depth psychology, which is built on the assumption of an inner world. So I'm really excited and passionate about talking about this. I plan on making a whole lot more videos that go into the key depth psychological principles. Please feel free to comment or shoot me a message with any questions or feedback. It's greatly appreciated. And check out my website, visionforchange.space, and stay tuned. Thanks for watching.